This video shows you how to submit Form EC-4.3 online when rendering an opinion on maximum medical improvement, MMI, and/or permanent impairment, or in response to a request from the board to render a decision on MMI and/or permanent impairment. The form is called Doctor's Report of MMI/Permanent Impairment. To access this form, go to the board's website at wcb.ny.gov and select Forms at the top. Then select Healthcare Providers and locate Online Form C-4.3. Instructions for filing this form are also found on this page. Before we dive into how to submit this form online, a suggestion. If you have submitted this form in the past and you saved your data, then to save time, the first thing you can do is upload the file that was previously created to autofill the current form with your saved data. Select Choose File and locate the XML file on your computer. Details on how to save entered data to load for future submissions will be shown later in this video. If you're doing this for the first time, or if you cannot access your saved data, let's start with an overview of the data you will need to enter. The online submission of this form involves 9 tabs where information is required. Fields showing a red asterisk are required for submission. You'll start by entering the patient information in the Patient tab, shown here. Continue by selecting the Next tab. A healthcare provider delegate can enter the administrative information on this form, which includes the patient, doctor, doctor's billing information, and billing tabs. The Doctor tab requires the doctor's information seen here. You would next provide this information. The Doctor's Billing Info tab requires the doctor's billing information. If the billing information is the same as the doctor's office address, select the button labeled Fill Billing Address with Office Address. The billing address fields will autofill with the office address information. Please note, you can save the doctor and billing address as data so that you don't need to re-enter it every time you submit this form. To do this, after you enter this information in each tab, select the Save Data button. Then, save the file to your computer. The next time you submit this form, select the Choose File button to upload the data you saved. More instructions about this process are available later in the video. The Billing tab is used to enter information about the bill. Please enter the requested information for required fields, including the employer's insurance carrier, billing CPT code, charge, and the service zip code. We urge you to enter additional information, if available, in the optional fields. To use this same billing information in a future submission, you or the provider delegate can save this data using the Save Data button. Continue to the next tab. The Maximum Medical Improvement tab is used to indicate whether the patient has reached maximum medical improvement. For the definition of MMI, see Chapter 1.2 of the 2018 Workers' Compensation Guidelines for Determining Impairment and the 2012 Workers' Compensation Guidelines for Determining Impairment. If the patient has reached MMI, select Yes and provide the approximate date of such finding. If the patient has not yet reached MMI, select No and provide an explanation as to why additional improvement is expected and the proposed treatment plan. The Permanent Impairment tab includes questions regarding permanent partial impairment. If there is no permanent partial impairment, do not file this form. Instead, use the Doctor's Progress Report, Form C-4.2, unless you are requested by the Workers' Compensation Board to render a decision on MMI and/or permanent partial impairment. For more information on evaluating impairment, see Chapter 1.5 and 1.6 of the 2018 Impairment Guidelines and Chapter 9.2 of the 2012 Impairment Guidelines available on the Board's website. Next, List all of the body parts and/or conditions for which the patient was treated with regards to the workers' compensation claim identified. If there is permanent impairment, select whether there is a schedule award, also known as a schedule loss of use, or a non-schedule award, otherwise known as a classification. You must select the appropriate checkbox to complete Attachment A and/or Attachment B. If there is only a schedule award for serious facial disfigurement, vision, or hearing loss, do not complete Attachment A. Instead, you must attach a detailed narrative report. If the schedule award is for occupational hearing loss only, complete the Record of Percentage Hearing Loss, Form C-72.1, instead of using Attachment A. Complete either Attachment A or Attachment B for each body part and/or condition for which permanency exists for the date of injury. The Attachment A tab is for Schedule Loss of Use of Member. If Schedule Award was not selected in the Permanent Impairment tab, then this tab is not required and noted as not applicable. If Schedule Award was selected in the Permanent Impairment tab, the Attachment A tab is for Schedule Loss of Use of Member. If Schedule Award was selected in the Permanent Impairment tab, begin by determining the impairment percentage using the 2018 Impairment Guidelines. If a schedule loss is appropriate under the 2018 Impairment Guidelines and there is not a non-schedule award, do not complete any questions in Attachment B. Attach a narrative, if necessary, by selecting Choose File at the bottom of the page. The provider should sign the board authorization. In the Attachment A tab, enter the body parts and the measurements associated with that body part or parts. First, select the body part from the Body Part drop-down list. Select left or right as applicable. Next, there is a drop-down list to select the correct measurement. This drop-down list will show different options based on the body part selected. For example, a thumb selection shows these 5 measurement options. A hip selection will show these 5 measurement options. We'll use the hip to illustrate the process. Select the first measurement to be entered in the drop-down list. Next, add the range of motion measurements and indicate whether contralateral applicability is yes or no. If yes, enter the contralateral range of motion and impairment percentage. If no, the contralateral range of motion fields will not appear. Next, add the impairment percentage. To continue adding measurements for the selected body part, select the Add Another Measurement button. A new measurement column will appear. Enter the additional measurement information. If additional measurement is not needed but another measurement column was added, select Remove Last Measurement button. Add special consideration information and details as needed. If there are more body parts to add to Attachment A, select the Add Another Body Part button and continue using the same process that we used in the hip example. Continue adding or removing additional measurements as needed. Once finished, continue to the Attachment B tab if applicable. The Attachment B tab is used to provide information for a non-scheduled permanent partial disability. If a non-schedule award was not selected in the Permanent Impairment tab, Attachment B is not applicable and will be noted as such. If a non-schedule award was selected, the required information will display in the tab. Select the appropriate body part and then select the impairment table and severity ranking. And please note that the options will change based on the body part selected. If there is more than one body part, select the Add Another Body Part button. Enter all required information and continue to the Sign tab. The Sign tab will finalize the form. Enter the board-authorized provider's last name, first name, and specialty. Entered information can be confirmed by navigating back through the tabs. Once finished, select Submit. When submitting the form, all data entered is validated. If a pop-up message or other message appears at the top of the form in red, the form has not been submitted. Correct the data. Then resubmit the form. After the board receives your form, a PDF version of the form will appear in your web browser. It will be a non-editable PDF. The first page contains a confirmation that your form was successfully submitted to the board and the date. The confirmation notice should be saved for your records so you can send copies of it and any attachments to required parties. Do not mail the confirmation to the board. You may select the back button on your browser to go back to the fillable form. However, the form will still have the data from your previous submission. Again, to expedite future filings, the online form allows you to save data you have currently entered on the form to an XML file. The XML file will be saved to your computer. When you need to submit the EC-4.3 form the next time, you can then upload the saved file to autofill the form's fields. In this example, the required information for the doctor's billing information, and the billing tabs has been entered on the form. To save this data for future use, select the Save Data button at the bottom. A pop-up window will appear asking for a name for the file. The name will default to the form ID and data. Name the file as appropriate. Since this example will also save the insurer billing information, we'll name it accordingly by keeping the form name and adding the insurance carrier. As seen here, the form is currently blank. To get the information you previously entered and use it for a new submission, select the Choose File button above the form to load the saved XML file. Locate the XML file on your computer, select it, and select Open. All of the information in the XML file will autofill into the online form. The Doctors tab, Doctors Billing Info tab, and Billing tab now contain all of the information that we saved in the XML file. Now you only need to enter information in the tabs where information was not previously saved. As a reminder, provider delegates can enter and save all of the administrative information, so the provider can focus on the clinical and impairment information. That concludes our walkthrough. If you need assistance, please contact the board's medical director's office by email at wcbmedicaldirectorsoffice@wcb.ny.gov or by phone at 800-781-2362, Monday through Friday from 8:30 a.m. to 4:30 p.m.